Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at @ItchJessino. So on today's show, we're going to be talking about the Europa Conference League. Um, we're still in contention for it. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about the pros and the cons of being in a competition like this, because there's a pretty good chance that we may make it, depending on what happens over the weekend. We're also going to talk about how to fix Arsenal's attack. I think yesterday was pretty painful in terms of the amount of chances that we were creating, the shots that we were unable to get. And although we won the game, I think about 10 minutes before the game ended, we could all kind of agree that our chance creation and our shots, the amount of goals that we're scoring, is not good enough. So we'll talk a little bit about how we can improve Arsenal's attack for next season. And last but not least, we'll talk about Buendia to Arsenal. There are a lot of links that went out this morning connecting us to Buendia. And we'll talk about that too, what he can add, what that would mean in terms of how we would line up. Is this the right person to bring in? What it would take for us to get that deal over the line. So we'll be talking about Buendia as well towards the end of the show. And I just want to let you guys know that some of the comments that I'm getting, the interaction that I'm having with you guys on Twitter and in these shows has been absolutely amazing for the last couple of weeks. And thank you guys so much for all of your support, sharing, liking, reposting, all that great stuff. I'm just blown away by the support that I'm getting. So thank you so much for that. A little bit towards the end of the show, I have some announcements. And so stick around for that. We'll do some housekeeping on what's going to be coming within the next couple of weeks for SheKnowsArsenal. And let's see, if you guys are in the chat box, let me know. Tell me where you're watching in from, how you're feeling, and all that good stuff. And we'll read out some comments in due time. So let's just start off with the Europa Conference League. So it's kind of confusing because it's one of those type of competitions. It's like it's brand new. We don't really know how you qualify for it, but the 7th place team in the Premier League this season, we will qualify for the Conference League. So that leaves a couple of different teams that could be in contention for it. I think Everton is, we are, and Spurs. And depending on the way that you think about, or the way that you, depending on the way that you think about it, there could be some pros or cons. It could be something that is good for us, or it could be like a poison chalice, however you want to think about it. So we'll talk about some of those things, but I had pulled up some information about it, and it's going to be one qualifier from each of the top 5 leagues. So it'll just be one team from the Premier League that will be able to be a part of this competition. And let me just read some of the names of the teams that have already qualified for this competition. Vorskla Poltava, Aberdeen, Slovako, AEL Limassol, Apollon Limassol, and Northosis, Famagusta, Severete, FC Basel, AEK Athens, Shakhtar Karagandi, Korabag, Lokomotiv Plovdiv. So yeah, those are the type of teams that are going to be in this competition. So based on that, I think that some of the pros, let's start with the pros, right? So being in European competition gives you an opportunity to make additional money. And for Arsenal Football Club, in the financial situation that we're in, I think having any sort of European competition will help us financially. So that's one of the positives, is being able to recoup some money for Europe. I think just from a prestige perspective, Arsenal being outside of Europe doesn't look good. And maybe being in any sort of European competition will look better. I'm not sure if it'll help us in terms of recruitment, to be honest. But I think that, being outside of Europe it looks bad for Arsenal in general. So if we're in some sort of European competition, maybe that will help us save the little bit of dignity that we have left. And another pro is that we will be able to keep a bigger squad, and we can keep some players in the squad that we want to develop along with us, meaning we won't have to loan out maybe a Balogun or an Aziz. We will be able to keep those players with us, and they'll be able to play in some of those first, rounds of that competition, and they could develop and get some much needed game time under their belt while staying with the club and not having to go on loan. So you may see that as a positive as well. So those are the pros. So for me, the cons for this competition is having to focus on a competition like this will take away our concentration from the league. I don't think we're the type of team we don't have the right type of depth and quality in our squad to play in multiple competitions and do well in them. And we suffered throughout the league trying to stay in Europa League, and we crashed out of that as well. So I just think it'll put a lot of strain on a team that really needs to be focusing on like one thing at a time. I also feel like looking at those teams and where they're located, it might be a lot of traveling that is unnecessary for us. For me, that takes away the amount of rest that we can have. It interrupts our training schedule. And for me, I'd like to see Arteta get more time on the training ground and we not spend so much time traveling, especially to like crazy far off places. That's just me. And also because there's only going to be 5 teams from the top 5 leagues. So that means that we're going to be really traveling around, So for me, that's a con. There's also another positive in there. I just want to throw that in there too, is that the winner qualifies for Europa League. So if for some reason we're not going to qualify for the Europa League, we'll qualify for it if we won the Europa Conference League. And so for me, I guess the biggest con, it's not a bunch of cons, but it's kind of like one big con rolled into. I just think we need to focus on the league. We're such a cup team that at this point, I would like to see us focus on the league and only focus on it. And that also gives us a good chance of actually evaluating Arteta without so many different caveats being put in place to kind of take away from how we evaluate him as in terms of a coach. So for me, him getting a good preseason, getting some of the transfers that he wants, in conjunction with not having the distraction of other competitions, will give us a really good idea of what we're working with. And if he's not really making the grade in November and December, we can make an educated, decision on what to do in terms of our coach. So for me, that's just one big con, all the additional traveling, the strain on the squad, having to think about another competition, those types of things. So for me, I would prefer to be outside of it. But at the same time, I'm never going to be like, oh, let's lose against Brighton, so we're out of this. I want us to win. So whatever happens when we win is the right thing for me. So that's pretty much it. And yeah, what do you guys think about this competition? Are there any other pros and cons that you guys can think of that I'm not thinking of? Yo-Yo says traveling for the conference could work as suitable punishment for the season's performances. Yo-Yo. Husa says, who's a bulldog, says, what about the young fellas getting more opportunities though? Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the pros that I listed. But at the same time, I think they may get more, they'll get opportunities through that competition, but we could also say that us being outside of that competition would force us to send some of our younger players on loan, and they would get first team minutes there. So it kind of works both ways for me. New Dawn Games says, that's so pointless if you end up qualifying through league places anyway by the end of the season. Exactly. So for us, I mean, what's the point? Like, we have to be in the top 6 next season, no matter what, so we should be qualifying for that. So getting qualification for the Europa League through the Europa Conference League is kind of like, is what it is. Sean says the travel is the same with the UEL, just qualify of some teams won't be great. Yeah, exactly. So not really comparing whether or not the travel is greater between the it's still a con. Having to travel to those faraway places in between games in the Premier League and already a congested schedule is only going to add further strain on a team that doesn't have the type of quality and depth that would be necessary to be successful in multiple competitions. And for me, focusing on the FA Cup and the league would be better for us, for me. I mean, we would qualify for Europa League if we won the FA Cup too, so let's see. Sorry, my dog is going crazy. She likes to go crazy when I'm doing streams. It's like she has a timer. She's like, oh, she's talking towards that screen. Let me start screaming. So let's see. Vebov, sorry if I didn't do a good job pronouncing your name, but I think the only plus is regular minutes for players like Aziz, Balogun. Other than that, nothing much. Exactly. And again, I still think that for me, I'd rather see Aziz and Balogun go on loan anyway, regardless. I just think for me, those two players, if they're going to be of any use for us, like Aziz could easily take El Neni's spot, not next season, but the season after. Balogun can easily take Lacazette's spot, not this next season, but the season after. If they get a lot of first team minutes and they get that development that they require. So for me, them getting a couple of little games against Locomotive, whoever. I mean, did it really help Willick and Reese to be playing against Molde? I think you can make an argument that not really. Willick got really, I think his loan to Newcastle was more beneficial to him than playing in those beginning group stages of the Europa League. So go on loan. I don't think them getting those little minutes in the Europa Conference League to me is just not, it's not enough. It's just not enough. Bulgarian says, sounds like that dog needs some water. She has 5 bowls in the house. So she has more than enough water. Jim says, I've seen some fans looking forward to traveling to these random places to play. I mean, if you're one of those type of fans that likes to travel, and you like to go and follow the team, then yeah, for you, it's probably like, cool. I'm just looking from a team perspective. I can't see us putting in good performances in this competition because I think us and Spurs have this same type of thing where we both feel like we're Champions League level sides. So we tend to kind of play down in these types of competitions. So for me, from a team perspective, I can't really see us putting in the type of performances to make this worth it. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't win it. I mean, we should be winning the Europa League, but we're nowhere near that anymore, so hey. That's just kind of think about it. Newman says he's drunk on water. Man, hey, my dog is crazy. She really is. Bulgarian says, can't wait for that away trip to Jerusalem. Hey, if you follow the team, this is probably you're looking at that schedule like, okay, I could go here, I could go here, I could go here. So it's probably good for fans if that's what they want to be doing. Rook Sama says, great point. Europa games didn't do much for the progress, so conference certainly won't. Just more games for Pepe to stat pad. Oh, man. All right, so look, we could still qualify for it. And if we qualify for it, I'm not going to cry about it. I'm going to watch us play on Thursdays or whenever those games take place and hope that we win the competition. But for me, I'd prefer us to be out. But that doesn't mean I'm going to sit there when we play against Brighton and say, please lose. I would never want our team to lose no matter what. I don't care what's going on. And I think there's still a chance that we can finish above Spurs. And that would be great, right? So we'll see how that shakes out. But there's about 30 of you guys watching right now. Make sure that you like the video and subscribe to the channel, and we will keep rolling on. So I want to talk a little bit about our attack. I think we would all kind of would we all agree that our attack is not really doing the business right now? We're not really creating enough chances. We're not clinical. We don't score enough goals, and when I just compared some of our goal scoring statistics from year to year. And this season, we've scored 53 goals and we've only given up 39, which is like the 3rd best defensive record in the league, but we're still not scoring enough goals. The teams that are in the spaces or in the spots on the table that we want to be in have scored 66 goals. So they've scored more than 10 goals than us, or they've scored 10 more goals than us plus, so you could say that those are Aubameyang's goals, but I think it's a little bit deeper than that. Or the goals that Aubameyang has not scored this season. I think it's more than that. So we're doing the right things in terms of defense, but I would say that our inability to sustain pressure and push enough resources forward I think it's more about us not opening up, basically. We don't throw a lot of players forward. We don't throw a lot into the box. So that's why we can keep our defensive shape, but we haven't figured out a way to sustain pressure and be a real attacking side without giving up the goals. I think we're still pretty timid attacking-wise. We still only attack with like 3 or 4 players at a time. We don't throw enough forward. I watched Leeds play the other day, and when they attack, like 6 or 7 of their players are going towards the goal. They have 4 players in the box. When we attack, we have 1 or 2 people in the box max. Now, Leeds does give up a lot of goals, but that is the next step, is we have to figure out how to keep that defensive record. We will give up more goals, but if we can score 20 more goals than what we've scored this season, it won't matter. It won't matter because we'll win more games. You have to score goals to win games. You won't lose a game if you don't give up goals, but you won't win it. And that's the difference. So that's this season. So the last regular season that we had, so I don't even count 2019, 2020, because a part of that season was played after COVID and all that kind of stuff. So we don't really want to count that. So let's go back to the most regular season that we can remember, which is 2018, 2019, which was one of Unai Emery's seasons. So we came in 5th that year. So we can say that that's the last time that we were competitive, and we can consider ourselves a top 6 team. We scored 73 goals in that season, which is more than what Chelsea scored and Tottenham, and they ended up in front of us. So we know what our issue was that season was we were giving up so many goals. We gave up 51 goals. That's a lot to give up, right? So we could score, but we also gave up the goals, which is an issue. But offensively, we were a lot better. So I think what we're seeing is that Arsenal can either be a really open team and score a lot of goals, but leave the back door open, or we could shut up shop and be pretty blunt in attack. So we have to figure out how to close that gap. I don't want to see us giving up, because even if you look in this season, in 2018-19, I'm looking at it now, Chelsea and Tottenham gave up 39 goals. That's the amount of goals that we gave up this season. But they were able to score about between 15 to 20 more goals than us in this season. So that's the job. The job is to figure out how we keep our defensive stability and score more goals. So for me, when I look at our attack and I see how dire we were yesterday, we're not close enough to the goal to actually score. We have a lot of nice, pretty pattern play. Our pretty pattern play usually comes in the back when we're playing out of the back or in the middle third. But when we get into the final third, it looks like we spend a lot of time near the sideline and we get a lot of corners, but that's not really what we need. I watch other teams like West Ham, Aston Villa. They penetrate the box often, very often. When we try, we actually don't penetrate the box enough. We don't play patterns and play quick 1-2s in the box. We're on the outside, kind of on the periphery of the box, and you can't score from there because we don't have anybody that can shoot from outside the box anyway. So for me, I think what's important is to get our best players in the box. And one of our best players in the box is Nicola Pepe. Nicola Pepe is somebody that he's a really good example of somebody who I don't feel like is being used to their full potential because he's not a winger. I was frustrated with him yesterday because a natural winger would beat their player a lot more than what Nicola Pepe does, but he's actually not that good one-on-one in terms of like a stop-start type of player. He's good in flow, but when you get him one-on-one with the player, he doesn't have that same burst of pace that like Emile Smith-Rowe has one-on-one. Tierney has it. Raheem Sterling, when he's on form, he has it as well. Even Jack Grealish has it. He doesn't have that. He's more of a player in flow. And I think what we thought when we bought him was that we were buying somebody that was a good one-on-one player and was a winger. That's not what we bought. We bought a finisher. Pepe is a killer finisher. And if we could get him and some of our other players in the box, we would score more goals. So I think what Arteta needs to figure out is how to control the midfield so that we can sustain pressure. If you don't control the midfield, you can't sustain pressure. You have to be able to win your battles and push the ball back up the pitch quickly. What I tend to see is that sometimes we can win the midfield battle, but our first pass is usually backwards. And we need to figure out a way to get Thomas Partey, El Neni, and these types, hopefully Basuma next season, to get the ball and instead of recycling it again, go right back down and try to score a goal. I think also what you see is Tierney allows the left-sided players to play more in the box. Aubameyang can play more in the box, Emile Smith-Rowe, Saka, these types. Pepe ends up outside of the box because his right back never overlaps. He never overlaps, so we can't create those little triangles on the outside of the box to get him inside. So for me, I think what would help is if we had a better midfield, a solid midfield that could control that space. And if we had a right back that could overlap. I think the whole underlapping midfieldy type of right back doesn't really work for us because it leaves Pepe so far outside and we need him closer inside. That right wing is always isolated and that doesn't work. So for me, I would prefer us to bring in somebody, maybe a right back that could do kind of like a Tierney role and smush all of our attackers closer inside the box instead of out here where they're isolated. What do you guys think about that? I really think Pepe, he's our finisher. If we play him more and play him more centrally, not necessarily as a center striker or central striker, but somebody that's closer inside, and we allow our right back to overlap, it would give him more chances to come inside where he's a killer. We need to put more resources in the box. We don't do it. When we attack with maybe 4 players, 5 players, but only one of them is in the box. Aubameyang was in the box by himself like the entire game. So that's definitely something that we need to work towards and move further up the pitch. Move further up the pitch and have 2 physically dominant central midfielders that can win the battle. And instead of recycling the ball back, recycle the ball back forward, kick it back to Tierney, cross the field, or cross the ball over to the right wing. We need some more of that. Instead of recycling backwards, go forwards. We need something more. So I'm still kind of working through it. But for me, we need to get our forwards inside that box. And our right back and left back they can hold the width, essentially. And if you have 2 physically dominant central midfielders, then you don't have to worry about having to cover the right-sided center back and the left-sided center back because you have cover with your midfielders. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. And I don't necessarily feel like I think it's a personnel issue as well. We'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about Buendia. But I think you have players like Pepe, Saka, and Emile Smith-Rowe that thrive centrally. They can play those little 1-2s and they can do it in the box. We just need to push them forward and keep them in the box a little bit longer. And that will create more chances. So let me read some of your guys' comments. I'm sure you guys have some other ideas as well that would help. And then we can all just kind of like compile this and send it to Arteta because he's not getting it. I'm like, yo, we need to get into the box, buddy. What's happening here? Yo-Yo said, said it all season. Pepe's a forward. He should never be maintaining the width. Exactly. He's a waste out there. But when you get him in the box, he's dangerous. He's a finisher. And the closer he is to the goal, the more goals that he will score. Even like if you think about that goal that he scored against Wolves, he was right on the inside of the box. And once you get there, defenders they're afraid to touch you. The goal that he scored yesterday was another one where he was on the edge of the box. He was able to wiggle inside the box. And once he got there, they wouldn't touch him. I think that's another reason why we don't get penalties. We're not in the box enough. Teams that get penalties are in the box. They force the defenders to make a decision. Either they let you go or they foul you. The defenders in the Premier League, they can't defend. They can't defend. So it's not like back in the day where you had guys that really knew what they were doing. These guys will just either let you go or they'll foul you. So if we could get Pepe and Saka in the box a lot more, even Emil Smith Rowe, and have 4 people in the box when we attack, and you allow your right back and your left back to become more of your wingers, because that's essentially what they are anyway, then you can sustain attacks, especially if you have 2 mobile central midfielders that can cover space. You guys, I got my first super chat. Look at that. I'm going to read it out. Wait, how do I put it up? Oh no. You guys, what's happening? Oh gosh. You guys, why won't it show up? Can you guys see that? No? Oh no. Where is the super chat? I saw it. Oh, there it is. I had a panic attack. I was like, I can't figure out. You guys have never had one of these before, but I'll read it out. Thank you for your donation. I really appreciate it. You guys, you can send me super chats now, and this will go to upgrading this equipment. You guys, I need a better mic, all that kind of stuff, so I can make this better for you guys. So all of this will go to improving the content for you guys. Is Arteta trying to follow Guardiola's Man City? If so, how much would it take to achieve that, both time-wise and money? That's such a good question, because I think we can see that's kind of what he's going for. He really wants to, I think he wants to play positional football, structural football, a lot of patterns of play, repeatable patterns of play. But what happens with that is there's a difference between Pep ball and Wenger ball. Wenger ball was very much so like, I'm going to bring in the right type of players and the right type of technical quality. And when you cross the halfway line, I'm just going to let you guys do whatever you want to do. Now, there's problems with that as well, because there's not a lot of repeatability with that. And I don't think it's sustainable. Guardiola's way of playing is sustainable, but if you don't have the technical quality, those top level footballers, it leaves a lot to be desired. And for us, because we play positional and one move triggers another move triggers another, we don't get the movement that we're looking for, and we're not technically good enough to play those passes. So what you'll see is like one time in the half it'll work and we'll score a goal, but it doesn't happen enough. Pep's Man City can do it over and over and over again because their players can find the pass. You know how we're always kind of talking about El Neni will see the pass, but he'll turn backwards. Xhaka will see the pass, but he'll turn backwards. It's because when the trigger happens, we don't do it because we don't have the quality or we don't believe that we can. Even if you saw yesterday, we had a pattern of play that we were trying to do up the left-hand side, and Saka forgot to do the run. Tierney passed it down the line, and Saka didn't run. So I think you can do it. And when we score the goal, it's the perfect goal. And it's a Man City type goal where it's like good 1-2s. It looks like really fluid, nice attacking football. But we can't do it at volume because we don't have the players that can do it at a high level consistently. So if he wants to do that, he needs better players, which he said multiple times that he needs like 5 or 6 players to play this way. But that's going to take time with Kroenke's in charge. If he was at Man City, he would get those 5 players in one window. We would just, boom, it would be done. But because we're Arsenal and we're going to have to get a piece here, a piece here, a piece here, it'll take longer. And does Arteta have that type of time? Maybe not. Because for me, I feel like what he's done this season is he's neglected some of the players that he has, some of his really good players that don't play this way, and they've suffered, like Aubameyang. I think Aubameyang's drop-off has been a combination of things, but mostly because Arteta doesn't play to his strengths. So when you do that, you lack consistency, and there's a lot of players that are out of form because of it. So I don't know if he has the time to create a mini City. I don't, because some of the players that he has that can play that way are also 19 years old, and it'll take them till they're 23, 24 years old to have the right players around them to play that way. Do we have time? Do we have 3 or 4 years with Saka? I'm not sure. With Emil Smith Rowe, I'm not sure. So I think so. I think he's trying to make us into a mini Man City. Not sure he has the resources and the time to get that done. I'm really not sure. Let's see. Richard said, Wenger's team pride themselves in their technical football. Bring our sexy football back. I mean, I'm gonna go against the grain a little bit. For me, I love that. the way that we used to play, but I want to win. So I don't really care what the football looks like as long as we win, to be honest. So it could be ugly Simeone ball, and I wouldn't care if we were winning. But for some people, they want that sexy football back. Sexy football in a Pep style system it will only happen if you have the technical ballers to do it, and we just don't. So that's why we look weird. We look so stiff, and we look unsure. And I just think the players aren't good enough to play that way. Let's see. Let's see. Steve F says, exactly, we have been missing runs in the box. Only Pepe and Saka really have a run at anyone. It's true. I mean, when Saka, it was like the goal that we scored, it was so perfect, but you know that we practiced that all the time. It wasn't something that just came out of the blue. It was something that we do. But there's times that like Thomas got that ball and passed it to Saka. Saka turned and then passed it to Tierney, and then it's so on and so forth. Sometimes when we get it, if whoever gets it in that midfield position decides not to pass that ball to Saka, they pass it backwards, or they take too many touches and the pass, the opening for that pass closes. So without the technical quality to play that way at speed, it's difficult. It's difficult to play at that high level. And we do need to be throwing more resources forward. We need to have more players in the box, and we just don't have that. And I think that's because Arteta knows that if we throw too many people forward, we're susceptible on the counter. And if we remember, what goal was that it was recent. It was so bad when Gabriel and Ceballos and some other of the players were just dropping back and running backward, and the other team was just kind of running at us. We're not very good at defending one-on-one. We're not really good at defending the counterattack. We're very susceptible to it because we usually allow people to get all the way into the box before we start to defend, and he knows that. So until we improve our defense, getting a right back in there, getting a right-sided center back in there, and getting another midfielder that can cover space, we won't be able to throw more resources forward. So it's not just about our forward players, it's about building the foundations in other parts of the pitch to allow us to do those things. You also have to be clinical too. That's another issue that we have, is that when we get the chances, we have to put them away. Realistically, against Crystal Palace yesterday, we should have been up 2-0, but we weren't because we're not clinical. We don't create enough chances, and when we create them, we don't finish. So that's also an issue too. Gary says, multiple times yesterday, our passes and shots into the box never made it past the first defender. That's really, really true. Look, there's no point in getting corners and free kicks if we don't have anybody to actually put in a good ball, and if we don't have anybody to put it away. We're really bad on corners offensively and free kicks offensively. So those are definitely things that we need to fix, because a lot of our crosses, they just go straight into the defender. And maybe if we had, put in the cross a little bit sooner, that gets to the person that's running in for the cutback versus getting a corner that we're never going to score off of. So I agree with that. Richard says, Pepe can't work as a striker. He can't hold the ball up. So for me, again, I didn't say he would play striker. I just said that he should play more centrally, meaning that his starting position should not be on the sideline. He can't hold the width. He's not good at it. So I don't necessarily feel like he should play central striker. I'm just saying that I want you guys to watch when Man City plays. Mahrez rarely receives the ball on the touchline. He usually receives the ball pretty much on the corner of the box, right there where the box starts. And when you do that, you put yourself in a position where the defender has to make a decision. Even when we played against Man City, when Mahrez got the ball out there on the wing and he pretty much dusted Tierney after that, he didn't receive that ball on the touchline. He received it right there in that half space, and he was able to take one touch, and Tierney had to make a decision. Tierney didn't get close enough. He crossed the ball in. Raheem Sterling jumps over Rob Holding, and they score the goal. So I just think Pepe, Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, these players need to be more central, and we need to allow our fullbacks to occupy the positions closer to the touchline. Yo-Yo says, personnel is not an excuse. Arteta signed Willian and moved him around the front line. The manager asked Heki B to stay last summer. before playing him inverted. Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's a personnel issue. I think it's the way you use your players issue. Because Arteta wants to play this inverted right back, it means that the person that plays right wing has to be holding the width, and I don't like it. It's not my favorite. I like when both fullbacks are overlapping. I like the inverted right back, but when you have right wingers that don't really love the one-on-one battle, they don't like the chalk on boots type of play. You lose something on your right side when you have the right back is inverted and the right winger is not comfortable in one-on-ones. So yeah, I think personnel is not really the issue. Like you said, it's more about how you use the players that you have. And I think there's kind of a question to be asked about how Arteta uses the players that he has right now. I don't think he puts a lot of them in positions to thrive. I think sometimes he takes away from their game. Olivier says the ball from Odegaard to Martinelli is what we want to see more of. I mean, yeah, for sure. I think Odegaard, that cross was like perfect, or the ball into Martinelli was perfect, and Martinelli making movement just made it even nicer. So Odegaard has a lot of quality that the team really lacks, and nobody else would have saw that pass but him. It was very Ozil-esque. It was nice. We'll talk about Odegaard in just a second when we talk about Buendia. I think the conversations can be intertwined. Van says, Jess, what do you think of Callum Chambers? I think he's good enough to be second choice right back, even though he isn't fast. He puts in good crosses into the box and is solid defensively. I like Callum Chambers. I always have. I think he can play right back and he can cover at center back as well. Here's my thing with Callum Chambers is if you keep Callum Chambers, you got to get rid of somebody else. We can't just keep everybody. And I think Arteta using Callum Chambers and potentially giving him a new contract may signal something more towards Cedric. Maybe we move him on. But I do think Callum Chambers, if we were to get somebody like Aarons, having Callum Chambers would make sense because it would give us somebody else who could play more inverted, or a right-sided center back and a 3, if that's what we wanted to do. So I like him in terms of we can use him in different formations and flexibility with our tactics. We could do that more with him than we can with Hector or Cedric. So for me, Callum Chambers is somebody that I like. I think he helps us with our homegrown numbers, and he's one of those types that just plays hard no matter what. That counts for something with me, so I do like him. I do. So yeah, let's talk about Buendia too. You guys can start giving me your thoughts on Emmy in the comment section or in the chat box. But I think Buendia is a good play. Actually, let's go back. Let me just read you guys. If you guys didn't know, Charles Watt said earlier that Arsenal's interest in Buendia is growing as they look for alternatives to Martin Odegaard. No bid made, but Edu focusing on the Argentine. So that's interesting. That I'm not surprised that this is kind of coming up now, because the move for Odegaard looks a little bit like maybe unlikely now that Zidane is leaving. Real Madrid has said multiple times that they view him as an important player. So I don't see us getting that over the line. And I also think based on what we've kind of seen, maybe he's not the right fit. And I'm not saying that he's not a good player and he couldn't be useful for Arsenal, but with the lack of resources that we kind of have, we need to make sure that we make it count. And I think getting the right profile and getting the right foundations is good. And I think Buendia would add that. So my pros on Emmy is that I think that he is a lot more aggressive. He's more pressy. He would give us that running power that we need up front. He's a creator, scorer. He's been to the championship a couple of times. So a lot of the players that play in the championship tend to be a little bit more gritty. They have that work rate and that fire that I think our team is lacking. He has good technical quality. and he's versatile. Those are really good things that we don't have. And I think he could play in multiple positions across the front line, but we haven't seen it. So that's more of a concept or a thought than an actual reality, because he usually plays off the right wing. And I want to get to this super chat really quick before I continue on with the Emmy Buendia talk. New Dawn Games, thank you so much for your donation. I really appreciate it. Says football rewarded individual flair and idiosyncrasy. Now it's rehearsed mechanical. Individual genius has been subsumed by the machine of the collective. We talked about this yesterday. You guys know, just if you guys were here yesterday, you know how I kind of talked about Ronaldinho. And we talked about how when Pep came in, he got rid of Ronaldinho, and how he really values the structure, the pattern, and the automatisms that you can have when you just have these patterns of play, and you kind of tell players what to do and they just kind of do it, versus you have your Ronaldinhos that kind of just do what they want to do. And that's more, I think that's better for fans, better on the eye. But when we start talking about football as a business, you want sure things. And if you tell players what to do and you get the right players in the right system, you have more control over your outcome. So I agree with that. It is more mechanical. It is more rehearsed. And it's not as nice for the fan, but it's nice for the clubs, and it's nice for the people that are making the money. Because if you can, it's kind of like an equation now versus like hope. It's more of like, if we know we can get these players in this system at this certain quality level, we could probably get this outcome. So I definitely agree with that. So back to Emmy Buendia. So I think he's a good player. I think every single transfer is a risk. So when we talk about the risks of Emmy Buendia, are his 15 goals and 16 assists going to transfer to the Premier League? What can we expect when he takes the step up? Last time he took the step up, he went from like basically those types of numbers to 1 goal and 7 assists. That's different than what you were getting in the championship, which is to be expected. But we also have to consider the type of team that he was playing in. Now, Norwich wasn't creating a lot of chances, but Arsenal also doesn't create a lot of chances. So can we really expect him to give us a goal return of maybe 10 goals and 10 assists, which is what we need from our forward line? When I was kind of doing the math for it, if you have an Aubameyang scoring 25 goals a season, you still need your forward players, your Pepes, your Sakas, your Emile Smith-Rowe. Even if you brought in a Buendia, these 4 players, they need to be able to contribute about 35 to 40 goals altogether. Do we think we're going to get that? I'm not sure. So I think it's a gamble, but I think it's less of a gamble than when you have somebody like Martin Odegaard. Odegaard, up to this point, I think in the Premier League has scored 1 goal and 1 assist. Emile Smith-Rowe has like 2 goals and 4 assists. So Emile Smith-Rowe is actually overperforming or performing better than Martin Odegaard. What I also see from Odegaard is that you have to play a certain system and you have to kind of give him the keys to the car, versus when we play without Odegaard, we have more of a fluid system, which I think is better for our output. When you have a system that's based around one player, then everybody else is affected. Whereas when we played in the first half of yesterday's game, Emile and Saka and Pepe were kind of rotating positions, and I thought that was better. Some people prefer to have just like a 10. I think we actually need to move away from that and have plug and play forward players that can kind of play with or without each other and fill in for each other. And we can just hope that the 4 or 5 of them that are switching in between those positions can somehow score about 40 goals altogether, because that's really what we need. We don't have a midfield that scores goals. So we're talking about our forwards. Our forwards need to chip in. Those 3 behind the striker need to chip in with 40 goals. So I don't think you're going to get that from Odegaard. I really, really don't. And I think Odegaard suits a system where he's going to be feeding a striker. And I think we're going to be moving away from that and have kind of like a front 4 that shares the goals, which I think has been most successful for us this season. When we've had the Odegaard system with Aubameyang, I think it's been less successful this season than when we played with Lacazette, Emile Smith-Rowe, Pepe, and Saka all together. So you guys let me know what you think about that. But from a perspective of Emi Buendia being a risk versus Odegaard, I think he's less of a risk, but he's still a risk because he's coming from the championship, and we don't know if those goals will transfer over. But in the form that he's in, the type of player that he is, I think he could fit, you know? So what do you guys think? And they're saying that it would take about 30 million to get him, 35 million. That's less than I thought. I thought we would have to pay about 45. So in the $35 million range, I think that's good compared to what you have to pay for Odegaard. So that makes it a lot more attractive to me. AK says Buendia is more versatile than O. He is faster and plays like Cazorla. Arteta is not using the pace of Martinelli, Aubameyang, and Pepe to his advantage. The slow buildup might end up being a problem for Buendia. That's true. Odegaard really suits that slow buildup, that methodical, kind of waiting for the perfect moment, the right opening type of play, where Buendia fits more of like a runny, pressy, fast system, and we don't play that. So that's a really good point, is that if Arteta is really trying to move more towards a Pep type system, then we would look more towards an Odegaard, because he can kind of hold the ball and kind of orchestrate, the offensive, what we're doing offensively. So that's a really, really good point. Belvashwan says, Buendia problem is he works too hard, which results in him being tired very easily. Is that true? I like his work rate. When I've seen him play, I'm like, that's the type of player that we need. We need players that can press and will run and will bust a gut, so I like that. But if he tires easily, are we talking like tires easily, like one half he only has in him? How tired are we talking? Danny says might go up to 40 million now that he's an international. Did he get called up to the Argentinian national team? Let me know in the chat box. I didn't know if he did. If he did, that changes the game. And we would have to get this deal done before the Copa. Copa America happens this summer as well. If we waited and he does well in the Copa, then we're not paying 35 million for the kid. We're paying 40 plus. Wow, that's amazing. That's really good for him. That's going to put him in a different echelon of player. So yeah, now that $35 million doesn't look like it's really would happen. That's a very, very good point. New Dawn Game says, Jess, should we factor in Buendia's discipline? If what I've heard about his on-field temper is true, we saw it in like the last couple of games last season before they got relegated, that he does have a temper on him. He tends to lash out. I think he has 2 red cards this season, which is a lot for an offensive player. So, that is something to take into consideration. With a team that likes to rack up the red cards, that might be something that we want to steer away from. Danny said he was called up this week. C. Wilder says yes, first call up. That's really, really good for him. I think he deserves it. He's been a really good player. And I think with the way that I think Argentina should be performing a lot better than they do. And maybe they need to look in different places for different types of players. Some of the players that they've had over the years haven't been able to do it, get it over the line. So I like when they call up different players from different leagues and maybe don't have the same sort of the type of shiny players that you look for from like PSG and Barcelona and these types of players. Let's try something different and see what happens. So I will be very excited to watch him play for Argentina. And if he ends up going to the Copa America, that will change his price point. I think just like players that are going to the Euros, it'll change the game for all those players if they have a good tournament. Babashwan says, but Buendia is a bad man. He will show the Arsenal players the meaning of fighting. You can't take it one of two ways. You can say that his feistiness can be something that looks like ill discipline, or it can look like somebody that's really fighting for the team. So you could take it one of two ways. Olivier says, there's a few players like Buendia called up for international duty for the first time, like Dubois from Lyon, just called up with France for the Euros. Price is still right now. So Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, if we wait to do our business after the Euros, I think we'd be priced out of some of the deals, So I think we need to get our business done early. Um, and maybe if we sell some players a little bit later, in the summer and we have something left over, maybe we could look at some other players. But if we don't know what we're going for as of yet for a team that's going to be on the fringes of Europe, I really don't think it's smart to wait until the Euros and the Copa already take place. I think we'll be priced out of some of the deals, to be honest. Richard said, I don't rate Buendia. He reminds me too much of that French striker that got Mateo kicked off of the team. So you think he's like Mope? In what way? They don't play the same position. In what way? Is it his attitude? Let me know. So yeah. And the other thing that I kind of wanted to bring up about Buendia as well is that we have an idea about the way that we think he can play, that he can play across the front three, which may be true, but we don't really know. To my knowledge, he's mostly played as a right winger, and that doesn't mean that he's a right winger chalk on boots type. You can play in that position and play it differently, like we just kind of talked about with Pepe, the way he plays it versus like a Willian, right? So he plays more like just a regular forward, but he plays off of the right hand side, and he's also right footed. Arteta tends to lean towards right footed players on the left footed players on the right. So I think we're making assumptions about the way that he plays, but if he plays on the right hand side, that kind of displaces Saka and Pepe, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I would maybe prefer us to look at a left player on the left, a right-footed player for the left-hand side. Grealish is definitely not somebody that I think we could get, but a good shout for me for a position that I feel like is actually open that would fit our system and the profile for me would be Awa. And I know that he doesn't necessarily score goals, but he does. He has 7 goals this season and a couple of assists, and he hasn't even played every single game. And he plays off of the left-hand side, and he's right-footed, and I think he would slot in perfectly, and then you could just kind of leave Saka where he is. And so that's probably the player that I would go for. Would I be upset at Buendia? No. But now based on what we've already talked about, maybe his temper, can he step up to the Premier League and put up those numbers that he's been putting in the Championship? The price point after he goes to the Copa potentially, them being promoted and what the price may look like. So with those factors and me seeing that we could potentially get a wall for 25 million, somewhere around there, and he would slot in perfectly on the left-hand side. He's played in the 10 role. I've seen him play there. I've seen him play left wing, seen it with my eyes, and I've also seen him play in a double pivot. So he's also versatile. He's in our price point, and I think he would slot in a little bit better. But if we got Buendia, I wouldn't cry about it, to be honest. Let's see. See, Wilder says, Odegaard is still my preference at the moment. Look, we all have different ways of thinking about how we want to reconstruct or put together this squad. So I still think if we got Odegaard, I wouldn't be upset. I really wouldn't, because I think he adds value and his talent is undeniable. So hey, if Odegaard came in, I wouldn't be upset. Let's see. Gary said, I believe Buendia has 3 years, I thought. Okay. Billy says, Jess, he can play cam and left wing before in Spain. You can check it. Even when he plays at right wing, he drifts inside. He likes to collect the ball from deep and drive with the ball. So if you're saying that, then maybe he can play those positions as well and fit in that front group. For me, when I've seen him play for Norwich, yes, I know he drifts inside, but primarily he seems to be on that right-hand side, and I just can't see him. I think Saka plays best there, and I would like to see him continue there and somebody come in on the left-hand side, because I think that's where the position is actually open. But I hear what you're saying, and if you've watched him and you think he can fill those positions perfectly, hey, maybe he's a perfect fit. Yeah, G says Awa hype has calmed down, but here's my thing is I don't go with hype. Awa was very overhyped last season, or last summer. And I think that was because Lyon wanted to get a large price for him. But he's still a quality player, and he's fallen off a little bit this season. I think because he never really recovered from being linked with us and basically being out the door and then coming back in. So for me, it's not about hype, it's about player profile, the price that we'd have to pay, and does it make sense? And for me, it makes sense because I think you could play him in a three. A while you could play him in a three in the midfield. You can play him in the double pivot. You can play him off of the left wing. So I think he fits the profile, but also Buendia does too. But what's the likelihood of us bringing in Buendia after being promoted, potentially getting that call up to Argentina? Is it worth it to pay a premium price for him? Or should we go with the smart move and go to Lyon and offer them 25 million for a while and walk away? Let's see. Yo-Yo says, right back and center midfield are pivotal for these attackers to flourish, in my opinion. The side looked notably better yesterday with Xhaka on the pitch. Interesting point. So are you saying that we look better because Xhaka, because he plays left back, but he kind of plays like a midfieldy type of role. Yo-Yo, for you, who are you bringing in for right back and center midfield that would help the attackers flourish? And I'll let you guys know who I think those players are too. Because I do agree that right back and center midfield, it's like a ripple effect. It's like a domino effect. When you have the right foundations in other positions, it allows other things to take place that we're not really seeing now. So Yo-Yo, let me know what you think. But for me, right back, I think Max Aarons would be perfect because he can overlap and play inverted. He can defend as well. We'd have to pay a premium, which would hurt, because I really wouldn't want to spend like 35 million for Max Aarons, but I think that's what you would have to pay because they're being promoted. But he helps with homegrown numbers, which I keep trying to tell you guys, we're going to need to make those. We're going to need to make those. If we lose Willock, Reece Nelson, Eddie Nketiah, they are all homegrown. So we have to replace those somehow. And for me, Max Aarons would help us. And then also, you guys know, I think Yves Bissouma would help us as well in that midfield. I talked about those dominant two in that midfield that would allow us to win the midfield battle and recycle the ball quickly and get back up the pitch and attack, to sustain attack. Bissouma is the guy for me. I saw a comment here. Now I missed it. Velvishwan said, no, it's not that, Jess. Awa had a fallout with the club, which resulted him getting benched, which is why his prices dropped. If you're talking about when he decided to, he didn't want to come to practice or he didn't want to train or something like that, he had some issues. But for me, that all stemmed from the start was kind of like him wanting the move. He wanted to push his way out, not necessarily from Arsenal, but just in general. Then he was brought back in. And then from there, the issues started. I know what you're talking about in terms of that fallout from him not wanting to train or something like that. So I do remember that. And yeah, his price is lower because I think the French league is having issues and because they need to get him out because they've already kind of replaced him when they brought in Paqueta. And then I think they have somebody named Shirky or somebody their players are already filling those gaps that he was filling before. New Dawn says, off-topic question, Jess, what do you think happens with Messi this summer? I was saying on Twitter that I thought that Aguero and Depay and Messi would be super that would be, now I'd want to watch that. But maybe he's off. I don't know. Can you see a team with Messi and Aguero and Depay? Depay, is he going to go to sit the bench? How does that work? Because Aguero is going to be the center forward. And usually Messi either plays the false 9 or he can play the 10. So I'm not really sure how that works out. But I can't see him leaving. I just can't see it. I can't see him anywhere else. I think as much as we probably want to see him in the Premier League, I think the Premier League is too fast for him. And I don't see where he fits in. So I think he stays at Barcelona, and I think they have to figure out a way to make those players work together. That Aguero, Messi, Depay situation. So we'll see. But I think he stays at Barcelona. I can't see him anywhere else. Billy says 50 million for both Buendia and Aarons. Give Nelson on loan to them, and we move. Hey, you could be the DOF. You go out there. You will sack Adu, and you go out there and you make those deals, because I like that. I like the sound of that. Let's see. Abdallah says, question, Jess, who are your top 5 players in world football? Gosh, so difficult. Top 5 players in world football. In terms of like what? Okay, so talent level, we're just talking like talent. We're talking about form at the minute. It's so difficult, really. Give me a second. I'll come back to you on that. I have to think about it, because I'm like, now my brain's like, because when you start talking about 5 players, it's tough. That's tough. Velva Swan says Abdallah. For you, he says Salah, Mane, Virgil van Dijk, Kabak, and Phillips are the best in the world. Talent, who you like as well. Well, so difficult still. Okay, so I would say one of them has to be Neymar. I think talent-wise, he's definitely underperforming in terms of his what he can achieve. I don't think he's going to achieve a lot in terms, because where he is in his career and all that kind of stuff. But I think talent-wise, Neymar is definitely up there. And I know that English media tries to tell you not to like him because he flops, but everybody flops. But the difference is I'd rather watch Neymar flop a little bit and show me some world-class baller skills than watch Declan Rice play every week and have them talk about how great he is. So Neymar, I would say, like, I have some like underrated people that I really, really rate. And a lot of them play for PSG, to be honest. So that's kind of crazy. But I think Kimmich from Bayern Munich, I think the guy can be top 5 in almost every position if he played there, because he's so good. I think he kind of fell off at the end of that Champions League run that they had. It was tough without Lewandowski, but I really rate Kimmich. So Kimmich, Neymar. I think Marquinhos is a baller. I do. I think I rate defenders, and so I think he's not only underrated, but he's one of the best central defenders that you can buy right now. He's a good captain. He scores goals too. So Marquinhos for me. Now it's getting difficult. Riyad Mahrez. Riyad Mahrez, I think this season he's been outstanding. I wish he would have came to Arsenal. I think he's unplayable when he's on form. And it's one thing to have a left foot and everybody knows you're going to cut it onto your left foot. But when you get to the point where they know what you're going to do, but you just can't stop them, you're getting in that world-class kind of Iron Robin area. So I would say Riyad Mahrez. So we have Riyad Mahrez, Marquinhos, Kimmich, and Neymar. And 5 would be... Guys, this is really difficult. This is really, really difficult. Let's say... It's so hard because I want to say the right thing. I only got four because anybody in the fifth is just going to be like a non-factor. So I'm going to give you those 4: Marquinhos, Neymar, Kimmich, and Riyad Mahrez. And if I can think of a 5th one, I will. The reason why I'm not going to name Messi and Ronaldo is because I don't want to give them 2 of my spots. because you could give them that, they're just on another level. They've been around for a long time. Mbappe, I like Mbappe, but here's my thing with Mbappe is that um, I think I think he's really I think he's really good, but I wouldn't put him in my top 5. Haaland, I think, still needs to grow a little bit more. I think he's one of my top young players, but not players overall. And Salah is just Salah. Like, you know, you guys, I mean, he asked me who I like and who I think is the best. And I'm not going to give my spots to Messi and Ronaldo because those are like givens, so I'm trying to give you guys other people. Um, what do you think of Pepe, Jess? 8 goals and only 1 behind Mahrez in the Premier League, 14 in all comps, same as Mahrez. Pepe is playing 300 less minutes in the Premier League. I think Pepe, if he's used correctly, could be really, really good for us. I think he's a finisher, not a winger. And I think we need to put him in positions closer to that goal so that he can kick the ball in the back of the net. We need goals, and he's one of our only players that gets them. I think if you had given him the minutes that Willian got in the beginning of the season, we'd be talking about a different Pepe. I want to believe that Arteta is harsh on Pepe and he expects a lot out of Pepe because he rates him. And I hope that we keep him around because if he's used properly, I think he'll explode. I really, really do. I like him a lot. Olivier says Mbappe, he will be in your top 5 after the Euros. Yeah, I mean, that French team looks unplayable on paper now that they have Benzema coming back into the fold finally, so you can get Giroud out of there. I think he scored 1 goal in the World Cup. I mean, they still won the World Cup, but he scored like 1 goal. So Benzema, Mbappe, that looks pretty crazy, up top. They have tons of midfield talent, defensive talent as well, so I think they may be kind of good. But we'll see. We'll see about that. The thing about Mbappe is this, I mean, I could put him in there, but I think that 5th spot could really rotate between a couple of different players. I really rate Mane. I really rate like Jack Grealish. I'd put him in there sometimes. I mean, if I wasn't such a big Manchester United hater, I'd probably say Bruno. I rate him very highly on the low. So there's, Pogba. There's so many different players. Van says, what do you think of Tielemans and Ndidi? I think they are the best midfield partnership in the Premier League currently. Ndidi especially, I think, has consistently been the top 5 DMs for the last 3 years. Yeah, he has been. I think if they're on form, Maddison, Tielemans, and Ndidi is probably the best midfield combination in terms of balance, output, and what you're getting for what you paid in the Premier League. Tielemans is the closest player that I've seen to Cazorla. And this because of his ability on the ball as well as his passing range to me is very Cazorla-esque. And Ndidi has been very consistent. I think this has been his worst season, but he's still been really good. And I think Leicester will try to keep them a little bit longer, but I can see the 2 of them doing a lot more in their career. Not like Leicester's a bad club, but I can see them going other places and still being really successful. You can kind of see that there's some future planning at Leicester already for Ndidi. When he leaves, Tumare will definitely pop into that position. So I think I agree that they're the best midfield partnership. I think when they're on form, in combination with Maddison, that's the best midfield 3 that I can name in the Premier League in terms of profile, balance, output, and what you paid for them and what you're getting. New Dawn Game said talented, yes, but talent is potential. He hasn't actualized by applying himself to the fullest, hence not a top player. Who are we talking about? Hey guys, make sure you guys like the video. I don't know how many we have, but I don't think we have as many as the people that have been watching. So make sure you like the video before you go. Roke says Pepe's goal scoring ability needs to be utilized better, but the teams he's scoring against can't be compared to the teams Mahrez is scoring against. They aren't at the same level at all. Um, Mahrez is also a late bloomer, and I think Pepe is a late bloomer. They kind of talk about how he started football late. He was a goalkeeper at a young age, and then they moved him into the forward positions a little bit later. Mahrez is a late bloomer. He actually didn't really start to be considered one of the top players until he was like 25, 26. Especially like when he was at Leicester, he was like usually when younger players or when players break through, they're like in their like early 20s, like 21, 22, 23. Mahrez didn't really break through like that until he was like 25, 26. Even somebody like Ben Rama is kind of similar in that way where he's like 24, 25 and he's just now getting his move to West Ham. Pepe is similar. He's a late bloomer. And Mahrez is 29 and Pepe is 25. So I think he'll be one of those players that if he's utilized better and we play to his strengths and we allow him to develop on his own development curve, which is going to be later than some of the other players, like he really, to me, plays like a 21-year-old, like a very raw 21-year-old. So if we put him on that scale and a really raw, like 20, 21-year-old would probably hit their prime 2 or 3 years later, that would put him on track to like be similar to Mahrez. We're considering him like world-class talent or close to world-class talent at 28, 29 years old. So I would say that he could get to that Mahrez level, but there's a lot of different factors that go into that. Will he get the playing time? Will he, if we get a $40 million bid, will we sell him? Will he reach that potential at Arsenal? We don't know. But they're in different points in their career. So I really wouldn't compare them at this point. Let's see. Oh, Abdallah put his out there. KDB, Messi, Neymar, Pogba, and Sancho. I think KDB, for me, is one of those players that I recognize his talent, but I actually don't like to watch him play. There's just some players I don't like to watch play. He's one of them. He's good, and he's definitely a world-class player, but I just, when you talk about top 5 players and you tell me that I can pick players that I like, then I start to veer away from the KDBs and the Messis and the Ronaldos, and I start picking players that I enjoy watching play. And he's just not one of them. I enjoy watching like Grealish play. I enjoy watching, if I can, I kind of enjoy watching Bruno play. I know that sounds bad, but I like the way he plays. I like watching Neymar play. I love watching like even Verratti when he's fit. I like watching him play. I like watching Mason Mount play. So when we start to mix in what I actually like to watch versus talent levels and that kind of stuff, I don't actually enjoy watching KDB play. Messi, of course, he's one of the best in the world, but I'll never give him one of my spots because he's just naturally gets it anyway. Neymar, we agree on that. I mean, Neymar, he's a joy to watch. He's one of the last true baller type players that are going to be out there. A lot of the players that are growing up now will be more mechanical, more robotic. But Neymar has natural talent that you just don't really see anymore. Pogba, I like Pogba. He's definitely a world-class player, one of the top players in the world. Again, he's just not a player that I like turn on the TV to like watch. And Sancho, definitely one of the best young players in the world. Hopefully he doesn't go to Manchester United, but I think that's where he'll end up. I know. Bruno is one of those where I hate so much that he's at Manchester United because I can't freaking stand Manchester United. You guys, when I grew up watching Arsenal, it was all about Manchester United versus Arsenal. So I can't freaking stand them. Everything about them makes me sick. When they got Bruno, it made me sick because I think he's a world-class player. And I like that he takes the team on his back and makes things happen. Yes, he scores a lot of penalties. Yes, he's annoying. But you would love to have a player like Bruno on your team. You would love it. I like having players on the team that other teams can't stand because that means they're doing something right. So I like him. because I like the player that he is, and I wish we had a player that would take the team on his back and kind of be that on-field captain that we desperately, desperately miss. But because he plays for Manchester United, it's like, blech, you know? Bruno is the Portuguese Kevin Nolan. You guys are so mean. Olivier said, how much did they pay for Bruno? I mean, I don't think we ever got like a true number. Like some Manchester United fans will say like they paid like 45 million and it was such a great deal. But I swear, who is his agent? Is his Angel Mino Raiola? Or no, it's George Mendes, isn't it? I have a hard time believing that even if they got him for like 40 something million, that the agent fees and all that weren't like astronomical. I wouldn't be surprised if they played almost 80 for him. New Dawn Game said Neymar's shooting starts diving meme is one of the gems on the internet. Future anthropologists will be studying that the way we study the Iliad. Yo. Young Whippersnapper says Bruno is a proper dude. The guy spoke out about the ESL without consulting his PR team. Look, it's just one of those things where there's certain players that you like because maybe you wish you had that in your team. Sometimes it's not about talent level. You just enjoy watching some players more than others. So my top 5 list, when it's mixed up with people that I like, is going to look different because I'm, like sometimes you just like watching a player and I just watch him and I'm like, we needed a player like that. We desperately need a player like that. And Manchester United's very lucky that they have him. Maverick says Bruno has transformed United undoubtedly, but I also feel he's a bit overrated. Yeah, I feel like he's one of those where you can go overboard, and then there's people that underrate him because they just don't like Manchester United or because he gets a lot of penalties. I think it's undeniable what he's done for that team. And some of what he's been able to bring to that team is not in stats and numbers. It's about the leadership on the field that he has. And let's get off of this. We're talking about Manchester United. I'm mad that I even said that now. I'm cutting it out. But yeah, Adrian says with the Conference League coming in, the Europa League will be worth more. So you're saying the Europa League will be worth more in terms of what you get from it and all that kind of stuff because it won't be the lowest level. That could be true. I think the more money that they get from European competition and the more eyes that they get on European competition, the money will get bigger and it'll trickle down. So that's probably true that now that Europa League is not the lowest on the table, that Europa League will be viewed in a different way. And so there'll be more eyes on it. There'll be more money in it. And so maybe making Europa League won't be such of a downer. But at the same time, we definitely need to get into Champions League. It's been too long. Billy said, I say it with my chest. If we sign Buendia, we can compete with United. I don't know. Just Buendia? Like just Buendia only? We need more than that. We need more than that. We can't just have Buendia. We need more than that. I would need to see Buendia in an Arsenal team before I would be like super confident. I'm more confident that Basuma would do it for us than like Buendia. But we'll see. If he comes to Arsenal, we will see. New Dawn Game said Neymar is very skillful, and against City, he was completely ineffective. Since joining PSG, he's never scored more than 20 goals, despite being a walkover. Skill is only a part of the package. Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. We get very few moments of brilliance from Neymar, or we don't get a lot of run of games where we get to enjoy him. But when he does play well, he's such a joy to watch. But I do agree that it's very few and far between that you get those performances from him because he's so inconsistent. And there's a lot of things that go into why he's so inconsistent. Being at PSG is not helping him. That's one thing for sure. Johnson says, what do you think of Rodrigo De Paul and Basuma in the midfield? Who would you consider for right back, and also your thoughts on the Guendouzi situation? I haven't watched enough of DePaul to give a good like analysis or thought on him. I know he's like an Argentinian guy, and he's like 26 years old. When I kind of looked at some of his stuff, he looked okay. Um, I worry about getting these players at these prime ages from different leagues. Um, I worry about that. So just not knowing a lot about him, but just kind of knowing some of the traits of this type of player, I think I would probably steer away from him. Basuma, you guys know that's the person that I want, and I think him and Party in a pivot would be really good for us. Who I would consider for a right back would be Max Aarons. George Saliba season put me on to Riddle Baku. That's who we should be going for, but I don't even think we're linked with him. He's from Wolfsburg. I watched him play and I thought, wow, where's this kid been? He'd be perfect on that side with Saka. But probably Max Aarons is who I would go for. And Guendouzi, the situation with him is he's a young player. He has a lot of talent. We're still not sure what he is. He's had an indifferent loan spell at Hertha Berlin. And because of his contract situation, this is the time that we need to make a decision. So if Marseille wants to go ahead and buy him, I think 15 million would be enough for me to part ways with him. It's unfortunate because just a summer or two ago, we could have gotten 40 million for him, and now we'd only get 15. But as long as we get more than what we paid for him, I think with this situation being as disappointing as it's been, I would just take anything over what we paid for him and just move on from him altogether. Billy, you love Buendia. Well, if we get him, you'll be super excited. So you're really into it. You're like, I'll say it with my chest. I love it. Ayo says, haven't Marseille taken Guendouzi off our hands yet? I don't think it's for sure yet. And I think we have to remember too that Guendouzi's injured. Um, so I'm not sure what's really going on with that situation, but I think he'll go this summer. He has to go this summer. Maverick says, we definitely need more than Buendia. I watched Brighton because of him. He's a baller. I think you mean Norwich. A midfield pivot of Party and Grealish, Odegaard with ESR Saka. Well, it depends on how you think we're going to play with our midfield. I think we've played primarily in a 4-2-3-1. I think that's what Arteta wants for the moment. So I think we'll play with a double pivot of somebody and somebody, Party and somebody. So for me, I think what I prefer is a solid midfield pivot that allows our fullbacks to bomb forward. And then so we won't be calling for Party and Basuma type of players to score goals. They won't have to because we'll have so many players forward. If you have your front four up there plus your fullbacks, that's more than enough to score goals, in my opinion. So I think if we play with a midfield pivot, we'd see something like Basuma and Thomas Partey with some sort of Emil Smith Rowe / Odegaard / something, So I'm not sure if we'd see a pivot of Thomas Partey and Grealish. I've never seen Grealish play in a pivot. I mean, yeah, and I don't think Thomas Partey is good in a single pivot either. So it just depends. Richard said, I think we are overhyping Basuma the same way we overhype Partey. Buendia would have a bigger impact on the team. I think Basuma's numbers speak for him. I think he's not going to get you off your seat, and Thomas Partey isn't either because he doesn't score goals. Players that score goals, the offensive players are the ones that you get off your seat for, so I understand that. I don't think Thomas Partey is overhyped. I think we have unrealistic expectations of players coming into toxic environments with like any player coming into the situation that we had at Arsenal is going to have a difficult time adapting. You see that with Pepe. You've seen that with Gabriel, and you see that with Thomas. I think the string of signings that we've had come into Arsenal and not look good in their first and second year is more indicative of the environment than the actual players, because these players don't just become crap overnight. So I think it's more that Basuma is not the type of player that's going to get you off your seat. He's not a Grealish, but he's the foundational type of player that would allow you in the next season to be able to bring in more luxury players. So Buendia could have a big impact on the team if he can score 10 goals and get 10 assists. Are we sure that he can do that? Where I know that Basuma can stand there next to Partey and keep us safe while our fullbacks bomb forward. So I think they can both have big impacts on the team, but Buendia's impact would have to be something like 10 goals and 10 assists. So hopefully he'd be able to get that. All right, y'all. That's going to be it for today. Before you guys go, I just want to let you guys know that on Monday, we're going to be doing the second part of our squad building pod with George, Harry, and Kelly. We'll be talking about incomings, the type of transfers we'd like to see come in, and we'll finish up that part of the squad building conversation. But before we do that podcast, that's going to be at 8 p.m. UK time. Earlier in that day, I'll give you the time, probably closer to the day. But Scott from the Arsenal Vision Pod will be on, and we'll be talking about numbers. We'll be discussing the numbers that we have put up for this season, XG, chances created, goals, all that kind of stuff, and in comparison to other teams as well, and what we'll have to do next season in order to improve from a number standpoint. So Scott will be on Monday. We'll finish up the squad building pod on that same day, and I'll also be, I don't know what I want to call it. There'll be a big announcement coming next week as well about the direction of the podcast. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about it, because it's all because of you guys. Because of your support, I've been able to have really amazing opportunities offered to me. And so I will be unveiling that next week as well. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll probably talk tomorrow. I try to come on every single day. So sometime tomorrow we'll talk. And yeah, thank you for everybody who put in super chats. That was super cool. I've never had one before. So I really enjoyed that. Thanks, guys. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.